16th DAC meeting to order. We will begin with roll call. Haley Valerie, present. Stephen Kroll,
Present.
Tika Hartman. Here. Eleanor Burke. Here. Miguel Viteri.
Here.
Lewis Haywood, absent. Lindsay Glatz, absent. And Joanna Farley. Aaron Stevens, absent. At this time, would the committee make a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from the October 19th meeting? We have a motion by Capital Projects. A second by HDLC. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And the motion passes. We will now begin with the consideration of dockets. The staff will provide a brief overview, and then the applicant will have 10 minutes to present. If there's any public comment, we would hear that. If there's opposition, the applicant will have 5 minutes to rebut. The committee will then discuss the project and can ask questions, and then we'll vote on the application. So the second item on today's agenda for design review 22 has been withdrawn. We will now begin the consideration of item number 3. This is consideration of design review docket 5222 for a property at 1429 St. Bernard Avenue. Robin Jones is the staff member assigned to this case. She's not able to make it today, so I'll give a brief overview. And we have Chris Clement signed up to speak on behalf of the applicant. So we're looking at the St. Bernard Circle Apartments. It's a new mixed-use development in an East B Enhancement Corridor Design Overlay District. It requires DAC review because it exceeds 40,000 square feet in ground floor area. The new building will be a 4-story, primarily wood frame structure with 51 dwelling units. The first floor will include 2 commercial tenant spaces under 1,000 square feet each, as well as a management office, community room, fitness room, bike storage, and apartments. The upper floors will be multi-family residences for lease. There's an associated parking area and community park. Chris, you now have 10 minutes to present.
Good morning, Chris Clement with HRI Communities. I'm joined by Roger Freebert with HCI Architecture, who is HCI Communities as a developer for this project. HCI Architecture is the architect of the project. Thank you for your time in reviewing this project today. I don't want to repeat all of the brief overview. A little bit further back, though, this property is owned by the North Redevelopment Authority. About a year and a half ago, Nora put this property out for a RFP type response process for specifically requesting proposals to provide mixed income, mixed use development at this property. HRI Communities, as well as our co-developer in this project, New Orleans Restoration Properties, with Paul and Marcy Irons, we won that RFP selection process and were awarded the property, anticipate having the property under a long-term ground lease, 60 to 90 years, I think it is. So have been working with Nora, had public meetings last year, received design input from the local community. Have a couple of more of those public design charrette type conversations scheduled, and have been working with Nora and through the public comments of public meetings to develop the plans that we have today. I will say the plans have been modified since they were first drafted about a year ago. So what you see now is the current set of plans. If you're comparing it to what you may have seen at a public meeting last year, it is different. No secret that the world is absolutely insane right now, construction pricing included. So there were some building modifications, namely to move the parking from being tucked underneath the building into a more surface area parking to reduce costs, and then also just skinny down the building and make it as efficient as we can. That's really it. I want to save time for questions. I'll let Roger give a brief design overview, and then of course we have our landscape architect and our civil engineer here to answer any questions as well.
Just briefly on the design side, as Chris mentioned, some of the design feedback was given to us by Nora prior to our selection, but also community involvement. So this design that we presented to you has been informed and influenced by, those public meetings, and the community in general. But conceptually, kind of a T-shaped lot, obviously, the frontages on, St. Bernard Avenue and, the building piece, closest to North Robinson or three-story portions of the building, again, trying to keep a little bit lower density there. Those, pieces of the building are also a little more traditional in, architectural style, lap siding as opposed to, a more modern treatment there, more traditional window configuration, window trim, building corners, porches, et cetera. So a little more traditional elements, not trying to mimic anything with more traditional style. Again, one, because those are basically in the street, but also based on feedback from the community, and then tying those two together is the four-story portion, a little more contemporary use of fiber cement materials, more contemporary window style, less ornamentation. Again, a little more contemporary architectural element, tying those two traditional pieces together. Then another major design element, again, a lot of focus on, this being tied to the community, being a community feature. So the community room for this space, interior space, indoor, outdoor space with a large porch, faces North Robertson, and then engage the outdoor component, a large community park onto North Robertson. So we've got some indoor, outdoor spillover space. We've taken the porch of that community space and kind of extended it as a stage platform area where the community can use, and the backdrop to that is extended as a large art mural wall in community involvement.
Can you go through the plans and kind of show us a little bit through the 3Ds maybe?
Sure. Any specific questions? So again, the frontages on North Robinson, what you're seeing in those lower two views, the three-story components, get more traditional windows, window proportions, taller windows, more ornamentation around the trim, cornice element. Unfortunately, it might be easier. Do you have the color rendering of this cement? Easy to see. Yeah, yeah, so slowly you can see there. So there's what I was just describing is that community park is in the lower left. So that's an outdoor space. And likely plant a larger mature tree there that would maybe cypress that was worked with, so that pervious paving, stormwater retention, that's going to be in. But may not be the species, but something mature. We're not going to plant a twig and hope that it grows. Wanted to offer some shade there. And the retail, Chris mentioned the retail, both of those front and are accessed from the porch of St. Bernard Avenue. You can see, and so the retail sign is there, and at the porch underneath the second floor.
One thing I didn't mention, this building, we've committed to NORA, and it's become kind of a standard practice now. Obviously, there's a lot of emphasis at the federal, state, and city level on disaster resiliency. Certainly, we've seen it as much, if not more than most, the impacts of natural disaster on housing and community support facilities. So we have designed and are building this in accordance with the design criteria from the state's PRIME program, which emphasizes disaster resiliency, of course, specifically to the hurricane, flood, and impact disasters that affect that are most likely to affect the New Orleans area. Associated with that, we are going to get certified under the Enterprise Green Communities Program, as well as everything will be designed and certified through the IBHS Fortified Gold Program for multifamily housing. So again, we'll have both of those certifications in hand prior to completion of the project.
And as Chris mentioned, which one last with the design element, all that the parking is, as you mentioned, surface, but we're obviously following all the city requirements for pervious paving and stalls.
Okay, thank you. So does that conclude your presentation?
Sure, again, we're
Okay,
happy to answer any questions.
thank you. One thing that I was looking at well, was hoping that you could speak to how you took the surrounding context into consideration with your design, especially on St. Bernard Avenue. How you looked at the adjacent properties and how this fits in with that.
Yeah, again, textually, we were very conscious, obviously, of scale. There was the main thing, to do have a two-story structure immediately adjacent. We wanted to make sure that, one, we obviously needed to preserve density to meet the normal requirements for the program, maximize the affordable housing on the site, but wanted to be sensitive to, scale. So I mentioned that is three-story porch per building, incorporated the porch element into making it more contextual with some of the neighboring structures and the neighborhood generals. Obviously, we started designing to look at some of the, the larger structures in the area. It's kind of a contextual feedback in addition to the smaller scale, immediate neighbors that were single-family structures.
I feel like in terms of the massing strategy, I think it's really helpful that it has a lower height. Obviously, St. Bernard and the massing gets larger towards the rear. I do have some concerns about sort of, at this point, it looks like one building just tacked on to another. Whereas sort of in terms of design, elements, fenestration, patterning, the two pieces, the one that faces St. Bernard and the rear sort of housing block, are really not integrated at all aesthetically, and are not resolved. Just seems like a three-story front portion that's been tacked on to the main building, and I feel like it might be more successful. I understand why you're doing what you're doing, and I understand being respectful of the context, but I just think it's a very odd, sort of attached quality to it. And I was wondering if you had considered maybe integrating more of the elements that you have going on with the rear block in the front building, so that those two pieces go a little bit more directly to each other.
I guess I would say, maybe it's not coming through in the renderings there, but as I mentioned, both the front piece facing St. Bernard and the rear pushing the T, I guess we call it. Those are both three-story elements and both treated with that more traditional. It's my opinion, what we're doing is linking that together with the centerpiece. It's not stuck on, it's a piece, an element between two more traditional.
I actually had the same conflict. I rather like the treatment on both parts of the massing, but it doesn't feel fully integrated. But I do like what you're doing, and I'm wondering if there's a way to bring at least some element of one of the treatments to kind of pull the whole thing together. It really does look like it's like a traditional building tacked on a box. Even though I like the patterning of the contemporary, it just really feels like it's attached. It seems like it is. We know it's not, but it just appears that way. Are the colors represented basically what you're planning to use as color finishes?
In general, I mean, those aren't specific colors that have been selected. Yes, we did do some survey of the neighborhood.
Sometimes it helps to kind of come in with a more, a little bit more conviction in your finish, your palette of finishes. Sometimes contrast, like sharp contrast, help with when you're trying to do these kind of designs where you're juxtaposing. I feel that the tones are just sort of in the middle ground, the gray and the green and the white, and it's just making even more of a visual conflict.
Well, and I'm not even sure I would necessarily be opposed to the treatment that's happening on the mid block to be carried over into the three-story pieces.
I kind of feel the same. I mean, sometimes contemporary, the conviction of it can be contextual on how the massing integrates and not necessarily a superficial treatment of finishes.
Right, I mean, perhaps it would be just with the they've got the vertical party. Yeah, I don't think that would be problematic on the 3 floors. And maybe if the windows are less traditional, sort of echo what was in the main mass of the building. I think it could still read as contextual with the surrounding.
Because the massing is thoughtful.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess I would urge you to have a little more conviction about the contemporary direction of going and have it, it could still work on the portion of speaking to the neighborhood. But because you've got fenestration patterning that's lining up with just context, that makes it contextual. Because you have wood elements, that makes it contextual, so it doesn't have to be as literal. And then I think you'd have a more successfully resolved and designed. Design.
The massing is thoughtful, and even though you were trying to do the parking in a different way, the way it's developed is actually pretty okay. So I think contextual is, the massing of it is what's most successful contextually.
And we appreciate that. I think it's something that we will certainly take another look at. We have kind of varied over the design progression of this. That front facade was a little bit more modern feeling originally. As the design evolved, and I think some of these comments came directly from Laura, which of course is one of the first stakeholders that we've been able to consult with. I think we shifted to more conservative, but as we consult and incorporate stakeholder comments from this group as well as Nora and the community, I think there's definitely something we can take a look at there. And again, certainly appreciate Shannon's comments.
Yeah, definitely don't disagree with that. As Chris mentioned, some of that feedback is
Right.
from the residents who traditionally or typically lean towards more traditional
Right.
stuff. I mean, some of the comments was the shutters on all the windows, obviously, for all the reasons you just stated.
Yeah, and that's
Right direction.
expensive, and this is definitely more digestible. than- But I guess I think we can push a little
Yeah,
beyond the still, find something that the neighborhood could have. But it's also, thoughtful, comprehensive design. It's just great.
Sure, understood.
Trees, are there any trees required in the St. Bernard side? or-
You've got big boots to fill. Danny was always.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was waiting my turn.
Well,
After
you
what
can
we
jump,
seen,
you can jump
and I
in,
just did,
you
you
can
know.
jump in
I
at
spent a
any
lot of time
time.
talking about Danny's agenda with trees.
Yes. So
Okay,
we
well,
can
I'm sorry, let me try and fill those boots. No, I'm the new kid on the block, Tika Hartman with Parks and Parkways.
I'm doing.
No, this is my first, so here we go, but,
You could go to the last sheet of the presentation.
yeah,
Anything?
yeah.
Well, not second line.
I'm coming at this from PAC, so I'm a little to here, but uh, it's interesting you mentioned cypress, but Danielle has a live oak there, which is very, very different. trees.
Yeah, and
And I,
that would be our first preference, be allowed. I think there was some concern once we started looking at all the true stormwater requirements, the attention we need to do under that paving there where the flag.
okay, no, I think it's a fabulous look, in either case. I didn't know how much of that stage you were planning on using and how have the trees work with that. I just want to let her know that we're not going to accept any, you mind if I just look at it? How are you? No elms.
In the right way.
The tree wells are too small.
So I think the width of the sidewalk on the front is 6 feet, if I remember correctly, so we've had them at 3 by 6. Can we make them longer instead of?
Of course.
Great. Do you have a preference of?
24 square feet minimum. And correct me, Stephen, you're the guru on this, one tree for every 30 feet of frontage, is that right?
Well, so there's no legal requirement, but it's normally 40 for large trees and shade trees and 25 or 25.
Yeah, so we have two on Saint Bernard. We did go with the smaller tree, just again, because with the sidewalk and wells that we had. And then 3 on North Robertson.
3 on North Road? Yes, you do. Sorry.
And the width of the frontage of the property is. And I don't follow the bumpkins.
Well, no, I
90
know this is an ongoing process, so nothing has to be perfect today. I'm just, one of the things that I found in the past and, is that in those planting islands, now this is kind of outside of my ball of wax, but, since it's on the interior of the site, is it usually we're planting large trees right underneath, the lighting plan? Is that the lighting? Usually they'll put a lighting standard in there and then you end up with a monochrome
In the,
in the parking lot.
no,
Yeah,
I mean, in this phase of the drawing. So
well,
I'm assuming that.
something to either move the lighting, which is what I would recommend, that you have this, you're doing hollies around the periphery. That allows you to have a larger canopy tree in the inside. So yeah, we'll go with, the large tree for every 25 feet of the 40 feet.
And as far as the lighting, we do have, admittedly, we have some work to do with our consultants. There is specific dark skies requirements to
Yeah, sure.
different communities.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Admittedly, we don't have that completely fleshed out yet, but so I guess I'm saying it's still wet clay there. And starting to work around.
Oh, yeah, it'll, pretty sad. But those are the sorts of things that we'll be looking for. Have I said enough, guys?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Perfect. All right.
I'd like to ask, could you speak a little bit to what that community involvement looked like what that conversation looked like, who we kind of.
Sure. So Nora hosted our first community meeting. This was like a year ago, so it was held virtually. We gave a presentation. It was well attended. I want to say there was 50+ people there. It seemed to be a good representation of the community members, meaning some literally adjacent. Yeah, and then some just involved in the neighborhood, some folks who are interested in 7th Ward in general, Circle Foods, and all the way down to someone who lived right across the street. The design or the comments, as you can imagine, we didn't restrict the comments, so the comments were everywhere on design, from things like the shutters to make sure we have bicycle parking, to potential retail tenants, and kind of ran the gambit to discuss pretty much everything about the project. So 2 of those have been held. Two so far. We have another one scheduled tomorrow night, actually. Then throughout the rest of the design progression, I don't think we have a formal MVP requirement for anything on this project. But we are going through the environmental process, and SHPO, of course, will have their review of the drawings. And we'll more than likely have at least one more meeting associated with that. So it's kind of been an open dialogue so far, but certainly a lot of specific things addressing the design.
It was, as I think I mentioned, prior to HRI community involvement, or where they did the RFP session. Any details of that other than share with us of the results.
The basic parameters of what we had to propose something within were set by the feedback Nora had received prior to the architect.
And I guess from my perspective, so I'm with the RTA. So from the transit perspective, we like to see compact development, so it's sort of disappointing to see a surface parking lot. And I think the other main concern that we might have is about the pedestrian realm and how this building interacts with the pedestrian realm along St. Bernard. which, we run a lot of transit service right down Claiborne right there, and then further down. St. Bernard is actually like pretty well served, area for transit. So we want to make sure that the pedestrian realm really does support transit riders accessing those stops and accessing that service. And my feeling in looking at the design is that the interaction between the front facade of the building and that pedestrian realm is pretty, stark. Like it feels really tucked back and tucked under and less inviting of like a mixing of people and of comfort there. I'd love to hear other folks on this committee's opinions about that. But it really, the way that the porch and the railings and the overhang kind of all come together, it makes it feel like it's really set back and disconnected from what a pedestrian might experience.
I think part of the issue is because of base flood elevations and needing to, raise the building up and the stairs. I mean, I sort of grappled with that myself, but given if you were to put the storefront, right at the street edge, then they've got an access issue.
Right. Well, I'm wondering if there's like a softer treatment of the stairs or something in a way that makes it a bit more of a welcoming transition. Or some way of just making it feel less like a totally separate space. And I was wondering about that with the balconies as well, the little, exits from the windows along the apartments, like thinking about the ways that other public space is activated, like if that was part of the front facade, or how can we make sure that this building feels like it's augmenting the public realm instead of stepping it back?
So taking a thought along those lines, is the 3 set of stairs absolutely necessary in the front on the St. Bernard side? Are there 3 separate retail?
It'd be 2 separate
2
spaces.
separate retail? Okay, so that could be,
I don't know if fewer stairs make it more inviting.
Right.
Is there a handicapped ramp?
There's
Is that
on the
the-
side.
On the side of,
Yeah,
on which side?
on the
North
Claiborne
front.
side is okay.
And so there's no front access to the retail with handicap.
No, the
It's on the
ramp will
side.
lead up to that porch area right there in front of the video space.
So somebody, you can't, I guess what I'm asking is, usually for ADA, the welcoming part of it is, you're not sending somebody around the building and through the woods.
Well, it's right off the side of the front.
You can
It's-
see it
it's-
in one.
I think it's kind of.
Am I where?
Done, it's on the,
Not-
right here,
not-
Sorry, I'm sorry. I
it's
missed
right there. You kind of go in
It
and
is
then
at
you,
the front, but it's,
right there.
All right.
Maybe we'll put it here.
Here.
Yeah.
So it is shaded, but it's the other building, of course, but this is the ramp. right here. So it doesn't go past really this first section.
So so it goes to here or it goes to here?
You go back.
Down.
It goes like up
to like this area here.
from this.
So you don't get to St. Bernard's facade that way.
You do, it looks like you go up here.
Yeah.
Like,
So you-
the idea is to make it open, but then it's chopped.
What if the stairs were connected into one set that spanned the width of the building?
Right, so it's more like a beach. Beach.
Well, that's kind of where I was
But-
going,
but
but
then-
I mean, what do you gain? I mean, then you have a sea of stairs.
Right.
You took one
don't
out
have
of the
any-
middle, maybe you have more green space, but is that inviting? Do you coordinate the bike racks to be in the center location where you maybe don't need a stair? So I think the direction needs to be a little bit more intentional from our part if it's a recommendation. I mean, I think this is, I see your point, but I think it's a handsome facade. I did wonder where the bikes are gonna go, and I see it in the rendering, but I don't see it in the plan.
Yeah,
I don't see it in.
you know what it is? Part of the rendering makes the
upper one.
the building itself on the first floor looked very, very dark.
What's that floor to ceiling height?
Yeah.
You know, it
12 feet.
feels like it's a well. What's
It always be, otherwise, how can
It's a street, but
Those
it's building.
That's the.
I wish it was a five
Stairs and the landscape. and
I would
the
rather
park,
see
you're not
it.
gonna switch.
hot pink,
You know.
electric blue, I'm good with that.
Would impose my agenda about color, but could be activated a little bit.
The bike parking, maybe hard to see on there.
Oh, it's all the way on the side by the ramp. I see
Yeah,
it
I
as
see
a,
it.
Correct.
yeah, that's what it is.
The only other alternative, and I'm not sure if it's possible, because it would eat up a lot of space, a lot of time for renting houses in the interior of the building. So that storefront can front. I mean, and my other comment will be, you know, oftentimes we see spaces like this, some security issues down the line. Because it's a sheltered space, but then it starts to be. And then people come back after the fact to garden space. And so, you know, that was my first porch element. It's, I'm reluctant to clear that out because I wish it wasn't that way, but that is the reality of the situation. So there may be something to be gained by bringing the storefront out to the street and ascending on the interior of the building. So that you don't have that potential long-term and one ways to enclose it. I don't know if that makes the building more welcoming from a pedestrian standpoint. It would bring the storefront to the street and make them less of a sort of a enclosed porch space that's remote.
And I can imagine that if the space feels more like usable to any pedestrian, then it also feels less usable to some.
No, I haven't found that to be the case.
No,
I guess there's obviously been no commitment of retail tenants, but I know some of the feedback that we received from potential retailers on some of those community calls seem to be uses that, and one of the reasons that, try to keep some rail elements or non-stair elements on the broad is to be able to, you know, have some people like this, shop or whatever,
Would be
but something that
lovely.
would be
Right.
engaging so that you'd have activity out there that would. Back.
I mean, I see the 3 sets of stairs as potential stoops that people can hang out on. I mean, I'm kind of looking at it optimistically. I mean, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I think the rendering makes that that porch area seem awfully dark, just the way it's rendered. It's west orientation, so you're gonna have a lot of that western light throughout the year, and that's kind of a lot of light, so it is gonna be a bright area. Even though the rendering is showing it in shadow, you're gonna have a lot of that low western light. So it actually isn't gonna be dark in reality.
do we then care? Do y'all have a clear vision of what that porch area retail space looks like? I mean, I know we've been focused on the larger portions, but
I think the retail, whoever's gonna come put a store there is gonna activate the space, and I think people are gonna activate it. I think
I'm not talking about activation, I just didn't know what it looked like.
it's just a porch.
No, but I mean, the entrance to the
Oh, it's like
retail. Which is,
It's
storefront glass.
Yes, it's.
which is,
What we, retail tenant.
There's transparency and light into the shops. So this one here, you see it.
I just,
901.
that's what I'm trying to.
A 901.
Make sure you're okay.
A9.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm actually pretty okay with it.
Is it possible that we have, only a ramped entry into the commercial area and bring the storefront to the front and have the ramp on the inside and no stairs? I think that would really help things.
And the stairs. I
You're a
think
fan
about,
of
like
them?
the ways that, like a second line going down the street would activate stairs, or like a stoop, having a.
So
So
what
that-
part of
that-
it?
what I'm saying.
What part of it do you find unfriendly pedestrian, if you like the stairs?
I think maybe I think the way that it's, the retail is set back. I like the stairs, but perhaps the way that they are chunked out in narrow places with like pretty strong railings.
If you zoom to the lower right, you can see a little more, a little better. What's happening.
Ah.
So perhaps we could have some stairs and some landscaping to soften it, like maybe stairs on the edges.
I mean, I
Have
think,
some landscape breaks.
I think there's landscape breaks, but they're kind of more, I mean, I see them here. I mean, I think that it's already in the.
What's in
Right here. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, maybe.
So they already softened the edge.
If you go to the
Yeah.
first page on that, I
I think maybe the renderings are slightly austere. You know, a lot of times in the renderings, they put flowers, so you kind of get the sense of,
we don't want to hide the building.
yeah, I can see that, but,
That shows at least some planning areas.
yeah, I think it's obvious that you're putting your landscape so you don't hide the building.
I don't know if you have enough space for this, but is there any thought to doing just like 2 ramps? And just ramps so that everybody enters the same way? Is there, I don't know if there's enough room to do that.
Without a switchback.
No, you could have a switchback in the middle where they meet, like you could have an entrance on one end and an entrance on the other, you ramp it up and then. Just. I'm throwing it out there, don't know how feasible. it
No,
is.
sure. Oh, appreciate it.
You know, just to say, everybody's the same. In terms of entrance.
This sort of reminds me of that building on OC Hill near Nora. It's a similar,
To the steps or
with the steps and overhang.
I think, yeah, the thought with the retail is that we want it to be part of the for the steps coming up directly to the sidewalk. They want that to be an interactive space, people coming and going, retail, gaming, sidewalk, and what we're trying to set them up for success, rather than railing that off, make it look like it's private, you can walk down the sidewalk and you should go there, that's. Bring some trip. Is that yeah, you're just walking to the bus stop or wherever, or tempting with steps. Something more visibly open.
Well, before we kind of move towards maybe a motion, we've all given it, but Joanna, you made a great point with the balconies facing the interior yard. I think it would activate the space more to have front facing balconies so people can interact from the street with the residents and kind of have an eye on the street and people can see in and imagine that this is a multifamily residence. There's people up there. Relocating the balconies to the front may help to do that. More activity. But, okay, so we've all given our thoughts, and this advice is, just advice, so y'all can take it for what you want, think about it. We're gonna try to formulate a motion with some, provisos on how we think the design could be improved. Does anyone want to start taking a stab at that?
I'll start with consider how to integrate the exterior cladding between the 2 massing elements with contemporary versus traditional. Good for that.
Second the motion.
I think we're gonna add some,
Oh.
we're gonna maybe add to the motion.
With the street trees,
With the actual,
40 feet for every 40. A shade tree for every 40 feet or, smaller tree could be every 25 feet. Frontage.
Yeah, it's just providing parkway trees subject to parkways approval.
and then I don't have any action with the front porch. Do you wanna add something?
What do I get to do?
Oh, you can,
That's enough.
Just make a
So-
recommendation for consideration if you have a specific,
so you're recommending to Miguel to add to his motion, he can decide to add it or not?
Maybe something about softening the
okay, look,
distraction.
look to try to soften the Saint Bernard entry sequence between the street and the front porch.
Eleanor, do we still have your second?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Okay, thank you all.
It went longer than we thought. Sorry,
I
guys.
appreciate y'all's time and all the thoughtful attention you give to it, so. it's definitely- What is the next step? We'll get a.
So
response, I guess.
Robin is your point of contact. So it's a motion for approval subject to these providers. So you wouldn't have to come back before DAC, but any changes you have, she can email out to the committee members. And then we can see it.
Great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again for your time. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, so the next item for consideration is item number 4, consideration of design review 5122. This is a site plan review for an existing grocery store with over 100 feet of frontage in an EC overlay. Cameron is the CPC staff member assigned to this case, and we have Timothy Holmes signed up to speak on behalf of the applicant. So after Cameron gives a brief overview, Timothy, you'll then have 10 minutes to present. And I just want to point out that this, the Lane Cotton Mills building is a locally designated historic landmark. So HDLC would review any building modifications, and our review today is to look at the site plan. Is that your understanding, Eleanor? as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Design review 5122 is an administrative design review for alterations to the existing supermarket routes, including demolition, site work, new interior finishes, fixtures, and equipment with supporting structural, plumbing, mechanical, and electrical work for complete renovation. The existing structure is 63,045 square feet, located along a major thoroughfare, Tropicalist, and its B2 auto-oriented commercial district, DC Enhancement Corridor Design Overlay District, and Residential Short-Term Rental Interim Zoning District, pursuant to section 4.5B. 2B, section 4.53C, and 4.5B3D. The municipal address is 4500 Choctawlas. The applicant is proposing to renovate existing lot that would feature new bathrooms, new cafe seating, new food prep areas, a reduction of parking spaces from 329 to 325 spaces, and updates to exterior building materials, including new railings, aluminum storefront entrance doors, and new brick wall siding. The site is a total area of 223,453 square feet. The development will demolish a section of the parking lot near the front exterior of the building. And the site will increase the amount of green space from 15,763 square feet to 16,383 square feet.
Okay, thank you, Cameron. Timothy?
Hi, I'm Tim Holmes of JMR+H Architecture. Have with me Matthew Rodriguez, PDG Design Group, Civil Engineering. We appreciate your time this morning and our review of our application. This is a renovation of an existing supermarket that it's mainly an interiors project. All departments within the facility will be completely gutted and renovation. More of a an updated, Rouse's. If you're familiar with Florette Street, we just did that one, that new store there. It'll be similar to that with the interior. And as part of the project, we did a complete ADA, analysis of the site. Realized that there were a couple of issues out there that we are addressing, in the parking lot, as far as access goes. Consolidating the ADA spaces toward, the consolidated entrance. In addition, on the north side, adding an ADA ramp, to exit out of the sales area directly, with handrails, et cetera, added to that. And then on the back side, of the building, we're adding some new mechanical equipment that, will service the new, departments within the interior of the building, and screening them with a, basically a standing seam, metal roof. The only really, architecturally, the only change on the exterior, all materials stay the same, colors stay the same. And architecturally on the right side, the Chapatula side of the front of the building, there'll be a cafe on the interior, and we were proposing to open up those bays that are currently shuttered, and with the addition of windows within those bay openings that match the pattern of the existing shutters. To that, if you would like us to speak to the parking lots.
Yes, please.
So, yeah, so architecturally, that's in a nutshell what's going on. I'll let Matthew speak to the site and the scope of work that's involved in the existing site.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone. As Tim mentioned, the site improvements were really brought about by the ADA study that was performed on site. In the existing condition, the ADA spots are kind of stacked in that middle row, and there's great concerns with the with some of the grades out there. So, in an attempt to, I guess, fix those issues, we're bringing the ADA spaces close to the store. We're gonna remove and replace pavement to be able to take the grades and make sure they're ADA compliant. And then we'll also provide a mill and overlay to the outer perimeter of the paving improvements, just to kind of feather the grades back to existing. We're leaving the islands as they are at, and I know it was mentioned in the review, there's a slight increase in the pervious area after the improvements are made. But again, just to address the ADA concerns, the front sidewalk of the store, and then also the side sidewalk Tim mentioned is providing us an additional ADA egress from the building.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Does that conclude y'all's presentation?
Yes, I'm just to say that the existing parking lot is going to remain, except for the area where we're working to remain as is, with the historical looking lantern type lighting that's there, along with the existing landscape.
Okay, thank you. And is there a landscape plan? Because I know we had discussed this being in a district that required parkway trees.
We have currently do not have a landscaping plan pulled together yet. We anticipating getting through this review, moving forward with that based on recommendation.
Okay, that's something that you'll work with the Department of Parks and Parkways to get approved. So since it's an existing parking lot, you're not really required to come into compliance. However, this is a rather large site and you're in an EC overlay. So I think that's landscaping with help. Maybe you can consider, a lot of this site is paved. So maybe you can consider opportunities to increase your permeable open space and add some landscaped areas and use some native planting. And consider incorporating that in with stormwater management features. So That's not something that's strictly required, but again, it would be very helpful and if you could take that into consideration.
Have you put in a permit?
Yeah.
Okay. So it would need to be reviewed, because it's not in the and the agency in my only question at this point is, I was wondering, since you're creating a cafe corner, if you had explored possibly, and if it's operationally possible to have an entry to the cafe itself, but because you're adding a ramp and that is a corner that could be activated, so that it could open a little bit more open. And obviously pedestrian, if that's possible.
Yeah, and that's something that's under consideration right now. Obviously, there's a loss prevention piece there to the whole thing, and that had to do a lot with why we consolidated the entrance and exits to the store. It helped not only address the ADA concern, we did that all consolidated in one spot, but gives them a one in, one out area to help with loss prevention. We'd love to see that opened up to an outdoor area for cafe, but it's going to be up to our client, their loss prevention folks, as to whether or not that makes sense for them to do that. It made a lot of sense over on Ferret Street and did that, and it's worked very well. So I don't know they would be totally against it.
Well, it's certainly not something that's required. It's like a different opportunity. To be explored.
I apologize if I missed this, which is quite possible, but, you have a handicap ramp on top that is extending into the public right of way. Is it not? That is, doesn't seem to be any. And so that's going to require major alterations to, I've got pictures, the thing, if you could show me where it is.
Yeah,
exactly.
there's an existing sidewalk there.
Right.
What we would propose is working with the city to take that piece of sidewalk and just let it rise up, rise back down the other side, and then protect it with handrail there, because it is on city right of way. But currently, that
Is there no other place that you could do that? Because what you're doing is in effect reducing the amount of usable green space. That's all parking lane and you're gonna be, and so all you require.
the existing sidewalk would just come out and be replaced with new in its exact spot. It would just rise up at a 1 in 12 slope, have a flat spot at the door, and then lower back down at a 1 in 12 to the existing sidewalk. So it's just replacing what's there.
Okay, so that would have to go before the encroachments committee,
Correct.
DAC.
Correct.
And so.
Is there enough space to provide access?
Because that narrows right there.
Right.
It's a little tight.
But
Do you have a plan B?
well, Plan B would be to work with the fire marshal and say, okay, we can go through the back room of the store to get to an ADA ramp that's currently on the back. Our belief is that that's not really the intent of exiting a sales area, is to exit someone through a back room and just stripe something for it.
I guess the question is there a plan B in the interior where you could put a ramp in the interior spaces?
Or could you do it on the front? I mean, I'm just throwing it out.
We'll have
Just to be
ADA
sure.
access on the front, and that'll be completely level there. It's just trying to get an additional exit out of the building for fire egress that we proposed this second exit, if you will. It's currently there. I mean, there's a door there now. It's just that when you open the door, there's 2 steps right outside the door.
So part of it could be included in that doorway.
Part of it, the flat area, could be in the doorway, correct?
I'm just, is that a bus stop there?
No longer, no.
I'm just not sure you have the enough sidewalk left over to meet public works sidewalk requirements. So, I don't know, that's unfortunately our public works guy isn't here.
Yeah.
But you might want to double check with them about that.
I've seen them ramp up sidewalks before and that can be approved. I just haven't seen it with handrails.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah, he has, but I do think that that needs to go before DPW and the encroachments committee before any finalizations or approvals and to really relook at how, you know, if you could do it in the actual front of the building, you know, if you have two, I would do that.
Okay,
The other thing I would suggest, I didn't see any tree protection. And granted, these are interior trees, but if you're redoing the parking lot, regrading and doing all of that work, you're gonna need some tree protection. And then you told me that there's also the need for trees and landscaping along Chapatulas. So we want to see those plans.
okay.
Like,
Um,
like along the parking area.
Oh, there's trees along the parking area, but there's none further down along the building. And so we need to have a landscape plan.
So parkway trees are required in this district. I don't know if the scope really would trigger it, but are y'all open to adding trees in the parkway along Chapatula Street?
I'm, the recommendation, all I can say is we take it back to
So
Rouse's.
general comment from my end, this is my Rouse's. These trees are pitiful. I mean, you know, you just wish that these parking lots could have, you know, a healthy tree specimen that actually provides coverage. I just needed to make that comment, but I guess if there was a need to add trees along Chapatulas, I think that would help alleviate. But that parking lot is pretty barren. It's just, they're old trees. They just were never the right species, I don't think. So I don't know if that's something that you want to look into it more specifically, but we can maybe do that in the motion
I believe so.
to consult with Parkways, at least in the area where you're doing work in the parking lot.
Yeah, they don't show the trees. If the parking islands could be expanded, that would be optimum for us. I don't know the condition of the tree. You have an arborist report on the tree?
Yeah, I think we're ready to make a motion.
Okay, I'll take a stab. Motion to consult with Department of Public Works to develop the elevated sidewalk along Chapatulas.
That works.
And to consult with Parkways on possibly adding or replacing trees in the renovated areas at the parking lot
And along top
and
to
along Chapatulas, and to review landscape plan.
they think they also need to meet with real estate and records on the encroachment.
Okay, we have a motion by Capital Projects for approval, subject to two provisos. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by City Planning Commission. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? And the motion passes. Okay, so Cameron will be able to work with y'all.
Thank you very much for your time this morning, and our next step will be HDLC.
You'll apply for the
Absolutely. I know grocery stores.
Seems like we ran that kind of parallel. They want some construction documents to be out the office for HDLC, and we did for recipe to that.
That's fine.
All right, very good.
Good week.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yours.
So the last item on today's agenda is the consideration of design review 5022. This is a proposal for a new softball field at Morris FX Jeff Senior Park. The reason for DAC review is because it's a public project. So in addition to the new softball field, there will be site infrastructure improvements, access paths, fencing and bollards, and also covered dugouts and bleachers. So we have the point of contact for this application is Nicholas Marshall, and we also have Jen Lelos from Capital Projects.
And my firefighter, pilot Carolyn Smith is here.
Okay, hi, Karen.
So this is the entry to what was Bierman Park, which has now been renamed Morris FX Senior Park on the west bank, near General Taylor. And actually that's the entrance off General Taylor. So you come in between the, sorry. Yeah, I can't read it. You come in, that's the main entrance, and NORD has designated that they wanted a softball and t-ball field. There's an existing t-ball field on what is now, if you look, this is plan north. So the east side is the t-ball field. It's an existing field. And we carefully located what NORD wanted, which was a NCAA women's softball field on the west side, right? And so we carefully kind of figured out the orientation of that to be proper as far as outfielders and pitchers go and hitters go. So this ended up being kind of the right spot, one, and two, really the only way we could fit it on site. You can see the home run is about 200 feet from home plate, and that's the home run fence that actually encroaches on the trees to the east side of the west field. Right now, we're under advisement, or what we're showing is that the entire t-ball field, which was going to be remain at the existing grade, and really all we were proposing is a concrete walkway to it, and a relayout of that small field is all in an alternate. NORD has asked us to do bollards along the main street and then fencing along its own entrance drive to prevent people from parking on the lot as they come in to view the softball. So the intention is to come down and park near the natatorium. There's a building kind of right there south of that, and use the existing parking areas of the park to access the fields. The main site on the base bid, the softball slopes gently, but a lot from about 2.8 to 0.4 on the south side. So what we proposed is a lifted softball field, so it can be flat at about 2.6. So what happens is on the south side, you come from the asphalt and walk across what I've been referring to as a concrete bridge, because it comes over this kind of natural wetlands to the field, right? So it goes from 2.6 to 0.4 and then back up to like 1.6 or 1.7 to the asphalt edge. So it's kind of wet in there and really, wet. That's the area, and I don't think that on these sheets we show, but that's the area where we're going to have to do detention for the stormwater management plan. It's going to have to all be on the south side. That's also where we're proposing, and I don't think that's shown in this either, is some landscape along the edge of that concrete walk as you walk up to the bleacher and dugout area. Right. So that's the softball field specifically. NORD is also requested, and we're pursuing a synthetic infield. So you might think AstroTurf, and that would be what it would be. So like an AstroTurf infield and a natural grass outfield, manicured outfield. We have 2 dugouts, one for home team, one for visiting team. We've allocated space for bleachers for home and visitors. Right now we show one little low concrete wall at both the t-ball and the softball. You can see right there on the left side where the circle is for the accessibility. So you come in and there's a little accessible area where you can watch the playing. That wall is meant to encapsulate we have a water requirement. So we actually have a spigot where they can hose down, or they can fill ice chests or actually water bottles.
And then we have some convenience outlets in that wall, and they ought to be protected, camo proof. So, and frost proof. Around the field, we have, I think, 6 high mast lights, 8, 6. They're not, they're wood poles with LED lighting right now. So the high mast lights isn't like a full blown what we really wanted because of the costs. So
That's what Nord uses.
yeah, so that's what Nord uses. We proposed steel, really high ones, but these are a little lower, cutoff's a little better. They're all LED lights that go around the field that provide enough light for play during dusk. Nord we'll have to decide, at what time that those lights really don't, or the cutoff on the lights is too much to actually play. That's really it.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. Is there any other comments? Okay, thank you. I was wondering, it's Morris FX, Jeff, sorry, excuse me, I'm still getting used to saying the new name. It's a rather large park, and I was just wondering if there was a master plan to show how these improvements tied in with other spaces. Is there another area closer by General DeVal that's being currently used for baseball or softball? It looks like there's another field.
There's some other ball fields throughout the site. I don't believe there's another baseball or softball field. I think there's a multi-play field or soccer field.
Football.
Skelly Rupp is offline because of the Eagles. We're trying to get that back up. We've asked them to do a master plan of Morris FX. And it has been in the capital budget, so one day we probably will develop one, but not when we need it, which is now.
Yeah, because
Right.
I don't think when a master plan would be developed that they would place the ball field in this location.
Actually, if you look at the whole park, this is kind of the perfect location for a softball field.
The T-ball field is actually already existing.
I've seen it.
Yeah, so that's already there. I have another project that's the renovation of the pool that's there, which
Mhm.
will be going to bid any day now. And that project was originally a natatorium that was going to be on the site that's currently going to be the softball field. So that little area of the park is sort of unused and been in play for redevelopment for a while now.
I guess the general Morris FX is just, it needs to advance. There needs to be a master plan. They're trying to program recreation. I mean, the place is falling apart in some areas, and then you have new facilities. I understand Nord's impetus here. It wouldn't be my preferred location, but I think they need to have these recreational components. So, I mean, my comments on the set of plans is, I really wish you showed the parking for each of these. So you need to add that to your contacts, especially when you come to us, you need to give us as much information as needed in order for us to evaluate. It's very obvious that you're trying to squeeze, the larger field in that area. You have a conflict with tree canopies, which you're probably going to have to cut off and cut off the field in order to clear the canopies, is what I mean. I mean, I see what what Nord wants with the fencing. It is just not the best aesthetically or, for the park that this could be, but at this point, I think we understand why.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they have had issues in the past when there's a school across the street there across General Meyer. And I think when the school has bigger events or there's like a parade or some kind of event, or people tend to park on that field and just use it as a parking lot. So especially if they're putting funds into it, they don't want people to do that. So that's idea with the bollards all along the street.
Are the bollards on General Meyer,
The bollards are on General Meyer.
are those there now? The red, the
No,
ones in
There
red?
there are other bollards in the parks, that these would match the wood bollards that are existing in the park currently. But there are not currently bollards on General Meyer,
Could,
which is why they have.
could we recommend putting the bollards along the access lane rather than putting a 4-inch cyclone fence?
Well, some of the fencing may be needed due to the activity.
Activity with the balls. Going on into General Meyer.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, and I kind of went, well, this one has the fence around the field, but it has a double fence on this side, so.
And just aesthetically, so from General Meyer, this is your approach to the park. It currently has like a large open lawn to it. I often see the smaller baseball field and I'm like, oh, and it's not used, but that's another issue. But it's like, oh, what's that doing there? I forget that that's there. So I think just having a large fence along General Meyer would really detract from the appearance of the entry to the park. So anyway, just to consider that.
Yeah, wait, a large fence along General Meyer.
Fencing here and bollards here, bollards here.
Yeah, it's bollards.
It's bollards.
Fencing, imagine what fencing would.
No, I know, I don't really think that's a great idea. So instead of the fencing along the drive, could they put the fencing closer to the,
Is this the new field?
this is the new field?
How do you feel about that fencing?
Well, I don't think there's anything,
And then the high mast lighting.
I think it needs to be softened appreciably with landscape, with trees to actually enclose the space.
Yeah. I could-
You could
minimize the impact.
connect onto General Meyer and to make your entrance more of an entrance and less of a. Yes,
Okay.
y'all get it. I lose my words. But moving on to that thing, you've got stuff going not into the canopy of the trees, you've got them taking out trees. Depending on what that activity is, and yet you show tree protection. So I have a real issue with that. Also, you're showing like about 5 extra trees that aren't there. Also, you have, that's a water leak. That's not a natural wetland. We've reported it to the sewage and water board, but they feel free. And so if it's at all possible, maybe what we do is instead of, and I don't know, is it the roadway there? It looks like you're trying to take out at least 2 trees.
2 trees on the home run side of first base.
Right. And if you could scooch it down, I mean, I'm not a fan of taking out any, okay? Don't ever look at me and say that. But if you scooched it down, number one, it's closer to wherever it is you're parking. You have room for a buffer between the highway, General Meyer, and you have a shorter, that walkway just looks like crud. I'm sorry, it's a very long. Do you have any other plans for that space?
No.
What's happening on the sides of that walkway?
That's where we're looking at some small ground cover landscape.
Ground cover landscape, ground cover?
That's what we've been directed to do.
Ground cover? I'm
That-
sorry.
That, and again, the retention pond is going to have to go.
Where is the
on that south side.
retention? Where is the
It's not
retention? pond?
shown, but I call it a concrete bridge. So the bridge will cross over the retention pond on the south side of the softball field. So we have.
Okay, you've got a main sewage and water board line going up to the, I'm gonna use the word left because it's plan left.
Yeah, that's fine. On the
You've got major, so you need to check and see where those lines are and the feasibility of having that.
Yep.
Detention or retention, and who's maintaining that pond and how I'm sorry, Parkways maintains north sites, so that's gonna need any additional pond maintenance is going to be the responsibility of Nord. So you, sure that they have the funds and are able to review those plans.
Okay.
Is that enough?
Yeah, it's great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
great.
So I-
I have one thing to add, which is that there's a bus stop right there, 103. So, and when we think about fencing and, you know, adding some elements to the edge of that park right there, to just make sure that anybody getting off the bus stop has a very welcoming entrance right at the corner, like where that new softball field will go.
Okay.
And then there's one, of course, right across the street as well.
Are you talking about the entrance to the park?
That's right. So right where you, like.
Okay, yeah, that could be a really nice,
Mhm.
you know, especially if you can scooch it down and actually get some nice entrance flow to that. And then you've got a walkway crossing between, say, what trees, 3 and 4 across to the softball field, to the t-ball field. It's on another plan.
The T-ball field doesn't have any gates. That's also in that alternate.
No,
The softball field has 2 gates in the fence.
Are you saying a walkway between the two fields?
I was thinking about the walkway. You're proposing a walkway between the 2 fields.
No.
Is that not correct?
I mean,
That's
there's
existing.
existing.
It's basically a neutral ground that comes through there. There you go.
No. Okay, I got a neutral ground, but I thought I saw a park. Bear with me. I mean, I thought I saw a walkway between the 2 fields across the neutral ground.
Not that we're,
Not that's being added. I mean, there is walkway between them on that neutral ground, but not being added. There's.
So that people getting off would have to, so there's no sidewalk.
So where they get off, there's actually, there's nice tree shade and there's a bench on the sidewalk along Justice Mayer.
Right.
And they would have to, folks getting off the bus would then have to cross through that central walkway to walk to the park.
So that they can't get to the park, so that,
It's inside.
so if you took the bus, you'd have to get off over here, cross the street, and then walk down that central entry, and then go down and make another crossing over into the ball field?
That's right. Or, you know, as it is now, they don't have any like barrier to access.
Right, which is, but I would take a look at what can be done. Especially any sidewalks or anything that could be added to the, to that side of the ball field to be able to allow people to access a bus or something like that, unless you really wanted to make them cross to the center island and then center back over and.
Okay. Well, it seems like a lot of the recommendations are designed around buffering this use at this location. And so I think we can make a recommendation. Again, DAC is kind of limited. We can make our advice, but it's up to the sponsoring agency what to do with that advice. So let's see if we can wrap this up into a motion. Is anyone ready to take a stab at that?
You want to try? So do you have-
Absolutely not.
So would we do a motion for approval subject to?
Consideration of
Maybe upgrades to the transit stop,
Accessibility for the transit stop.
buffering between the news complex and fencing and the street.
resolve the conflict with the trees at the softball field.
And also consider a master plan for Morris Jeff Park. And maybe just consider having more of a ball complex on the, I guess that would be the northern edge of the park.
I mean, we wouldn't be able to do that.
I'm just saying, consider it. It's in the motion. Y'all can take it for what you
I'll
want.
give it to Nora and tell them.
Mhm. Okay,
The back of this of Morris FX itself has a large field. Right? Behind
If
the
anywhere, it could
stadium.
be across Vespasian to try to grab some of that land back there and create a baseball, softball complex.
Oh, I think you're going to, I was staying within the footprint of FX Jeff.
I think we've been trying to expand the footprint across Magellan Canal. That's part of
Now,
the.
this may be outside our scope.
Yeah,
That's
we're
why
just- I'm
just the
just-
proviso would
So
say,
along with what you were saying and a follow-up with site plan including parking,
okay,
and that's all.
okay.
That's all.
Can we do anything further in you guys?
Well, yeah,
Or is that?
follow up with parking.
Changes to landscaping, reviewed by Parks and Parkways. So we have a motion by, who made it? Me? You did. Okay, by city planning. Do we have a second? Second by capital project. All in favor? All opposed? And the motion passes. All right, well, that's the end of our agenda. The next committee meeting will be December 21st. I never met Jen. Hi, Jen.
And your years of Americans and Markers.
I never got to meet you, but I read your emails, and so I did see some confusion, so prior to signing your application.
Yes, we
you said
had
listed as a
thousands.
contact. Yes, we will email as our main point of contact, and then there's
Okay, so
a
that's
responsible for
Yep.
letting everybody